Hi, everyone. My name is Dimitri Tito, and I'm the chairperson of AOGME Residents and Fellows Council. Welcome to our webinar on residency interviewings and tips for the match. So I want to thank you, each of you applicants present on this call, and also the resident speakers we have that will be here today with us. So Katie Harden, Anita. So just a couple of things about what we do as part of RFC. The Residents and Fellows Council is a group within AOGME's Assembly of Osteopathic Graduate Medical Educators that was established back in 2018 to develop future leaders, just like some of you in the osteopathic profession. So what we do as part of RFC, we create a leadership track for residents and fellows, as well as educational activities for our members. So we also provide support and resources on critical issues in the osteopathic profession. We do mentorship for student leaders, networking opportunities for our IFC members. So if you're a fourth-year medical student, consider joining us. You have an email that we will drop in the chat box. You can also visit us at www.aacom.org/RFC to learn about our webinars and membership meetings and all the events that we do. So I'm going to start by inviting our speakers to introduce themselves. For all our speakers present here, if you could share with the applicants where you're from, where you grew up, where you did your medical school, and where you're going for residency, along with your specialty. And for Katie Harden and Anita, if you could share what you do in your day-to-day life. All right. I'm going to start with Linda.
Hello, my name is Linda Logan. I'm a third year, sorry about that. I'm a third year pathology resident up in Burlington, Vermont at UVM Medical Center. I'm currently interviewing for fellowship in women's health, so I'm going to specialize in breast cancer and gynecological cancers, as well as perinatal health, which includes placentas and all that fun stuff. I'm from Salt Lake City, Utah. I grew up there, went to med school in West Virginia at West Virginia School of Osteopathic Medicine, which is where I met Dimitri, actually. And then Allison, she's on our board as well. And I think that's all of the questions. I don't think I missed any.
All right. And then let's go with Maria.
Hey guys, I'll try to not miss any of Dimitri's questions. My name is Maria. I'm a PGY2 currently at Christiana in Delaware. I'm doing a combined residency in emergency medicine and internal medicine. I'm originally from Maryland, but I did med school in Maine at the University of New England.
All right, Mustafa.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mustafa Basri. I am one of the PGY2 in radiation oncology at University of Wisconsin in Madison. I did my transitional year in Columbus, Ohio at Riverside Methodist. I am originally from Baghdad, Iraq, came here about 12 years ago, and I technically consider Columbus home. I went to medical school at University of Kentucky College of Osteopathic Medicine. And I am also the membership chair at RFC. So yeah, looking forward to this webinar.
Awesome. Kevin.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin. I am a second year family medicine resident at the University of Pittsburgh, Shady Side Family Medicine Residency. And I grew up in New York City, and I went to Unicom, University of New England College of Osteopathic Medicine with Maria in Maine. So it's nice to meet her.
Thank you, Kevin. Katie Harden.
Hello, everybody. So my name is Katie Harden, and I am a residency placement coordinator with Kansas City University College of Osteopathic Medicine. Originally, I'm from St. Louis Park, Minnesota, but have been in Southwest Missouri for the past almost 22 years.
Thank you, Katie. And then Anita.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Anita Albritton. I am currently the program manager for GME initiatives at ACOM, but my past life, I was a residency program manager at Morale School of Medicine in the pediatric residency program for over 4.5 years. So I've been through, at the very least, 4 recruitment cycles, whether that was in person and virtual. We did both.
And then thank you. And then myself, I'm Dimitri Tito. I'm the president of the AOGME Resident Fellows Council. And I went to medical school at the West Virginia School of Osteopathic Medicine. Well, I'm doing my internal medicine residency up here in Michigan at the Western Michigan University School of Medicine. All right. And then the next part of the question would be sharing what we put in the hobby section of our ERAS application. So I'll have to put down for the hobby section of your ERAS application. So I'm going to start with Mustafa.
All right, for my hobby section, I took a little bit longer time to think about it, but I came up with playing soccer, cooking Iraqi food, reading nonfiction books, and then a bunch of other stuff. And we can talk more about why that section is important after, but yeah.
Thank you, Mustafa. How about you, Linda?
I put something to do with my cats because I was a very crazy cat person at the time. So I think I put like playing fetch with my cats. I talked about my food, like being obsessed with food and different cultures. And I talked about outdoorsy stuff. So camping, biking, that kind of thing.
Thank you, Linda. And you.
Sorry, Dimitri, you're cutting in and out. I can't hear you, but since I'm talking now, I'm just gonna go.
I'll come back.
So I think the hobby section is the most important in the ERAS application, which I learned after the fact. And so my quarantine hobby was I bought a ukulele on Amazon and I taught myself how to play. So that was one of the things I put on mine, and I purposefully did not have my ukulele. It's right there, but I didn't have it behind me because a bunch of people asked me to like play them a song and I'm like not really good. So I was very happy that they couldn't be like, pick it up. I'd be like, oh, sorry, it's downstairs. And so that saved me, but it came up and it was a good conversation.
Okay, I think I'm the last one. So I put down games, especially video games, and cooking and running as well. I will say in one interview, or not one interview, but one like virtual gathering or something, because I said I like video games, I was forced to set up like a multiplayer game or something. So yeah, definitely be careful what you put down. Make sure you can kind of like show that you can do it in some capacity.
And I can go next. I'm not sure if you could hear me now. I've been having some technical difficulties. All right, well, I also put down video games. And then the program director started asking me like, what games do you play? And then like, what console do you have? And I was like, maybe I shouldn't have said that. And I also to play soccer. So I put that I have a. I'm gonna ask. Okay. I think I'm having technical difficulties here. So I'll let Mustafa take over here.
All right, no worries. So let's start with a few questions here. So I think what we'll do is we'll answer some of those questions that we received prior to the webinar, and then we'll go ahead and answer some of the online one that we get. And Maria, I'll ask that you and I alternate between questions. So I'll open this with a very broad question on recommendations on ranking places that you've only interacted with virtually. Whoever would like to answer that.
I can go. So I know Kevin, Mustafa, and I were, I think, the 3 people who have done virtual interviews. Dimitri and Linda snuck in before COVID. But it's really difficult to get a feel for places through a computer, and everyone obviously is only going to have the residents who like the program talk on the interviews and the pre-interview dinner things on Zoom. So I agree, it's really difficult, but something that I used to kind of help gauge programs is interactions outside of just the interview day. So I had a lot of programs have this. They have like a resident who's designated as the medical student coordinator, or the program coordinator will have the name of a resident. And I'd always try to reach out to those programs I was really interested in and ask if I could have the email address of a current resident. And I would try and have a little bit of communication with them, or I'd email with the program coordinator, or if I had a question, I'd try and email the program coordinator and the PD. And the receptiveness and the responsiveness and the communication I got from those interactions really helped me get a feel for some of those programs. Some of them were really receptive, really excited to email me and invited me to like come visit or wanted to talk or give me phone numbers and spent hours on phone calls, and others were a little more dismissive. And I think that kind of gave me a feel into like how they value the individuals in their program. And that was one thing that helped me a little bit.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. Kevin, anything else to add to this?
No. Sorry, I'm also multitasking, trying to answer some of these Q&A questions too. But yeah,
no worries. Yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that was some of the most difficult things that you can get from a virtual interview, just because of the nature of the interview. What is very helpful, again, like what Maria said, just gauging the interactions between not just the interviewee or interviewers, putting on a good show or face for you, but also the interactions between each other, between the coordinator and the staff faculty, between the residents, with each other, but as well as the interaction between them and the faculty. I think that's very important. And one thing for me that stood out, at least in radiation oncology, was we like to pride ourselves as being very low key, very informal group of people, and so everybody is on first name basis. And so sometimes when there's Dr. So and so, Dr. So and so, and people are not as relaxed in some of those interactions, that maybe the general feel is a little more formal than what I would like, which is a little more chill. So just those cues that you can pick up on, and then like what Maria was saying about interacting with people, just to see if they vibe with you and their energy kind of match you.
All right,
Katie or Anita, anything? Yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead. No, you're good.
I was going to just say the same thing. I think some of the best advice we've given students over the years is definitely to connect with the residents outside of the interview timeframe. Get to know them, connect with them. We have a tendency to try to connect our current medical students with graduates that are in programs too. So alumni love to help connect and inform their fellow classmates or future graduates from their alma mater. So it's definitely a great way to get some inside information, knowledge about the quality of the program, the health of the program, how that team works together. You'll get a lot more from them on an informal conversation than you ever will in that formal interview setting.
All right, oh, go ahead, never mind.
I would definitely say take advantage of the mixers the night before events where you're talking to the residents, ask as many questions as possible. You want to stand out to the residents as well, because after your interview day, we always ask the residents what their feedback is. Do you think this person is a good fit for the program? Did they ask any questions? How were they? Were they talkative? So make sure on those mixers that you're talking, you're just as communicative with them. I agree with Maria in sending questions to the program coordinator, to the program director, if you have any questions, but make sure those questions are program specific. Like you went to our website, you read through it, and you're asking us a question that is detailed about us versus asking a very general question, because we may or may not be slow to respond. Because if it's a general question that we know for sure is on the website and you're just asking this question, you may or may not get a response. But if you ask something that is on our website, you read through our information, and you ask that question, that will pique our interest. And we will definitely be able to like engage with you in a conversation. So yeah.
Awesome. Really, really great advice. Another question that we got submitted ahead of time is, how long should a standard interview question answer be for questions including the tell me about yourself question? I don't know, Linda, did you have any thoughts on this specifically?
It's a great question. I don't really think there's a time limit. I would say with any question you're asked, if you don't know the answer, you're allowed to say, that's a great question. Let me think about it for a second and get your thoughts together, and then give a concise answer that actually is answering the question. Or if you need the question repeated, you can also ask for clarification. But like an about me question, I would just, say a few points about yourself, and not too personal, not too nebulous, just kind of straightforward. And it's probably good enough, honestly.
Yeah. You hear me now? I make my audio working. Nice. And I agree with Linda. I think the concern is, is talking for too long. I would say, I think maybe a couple of minutes might be the max when answering those type of questions. I mean, some of those program directors, their attention span is not that long. So you need to be able to relate your main points in a couple of minutes instead of going 5 minutes and you're still answering about yourself. So that's what I want to add.
Yeah, I completely agree with what's been said. When I prepared personally, my school provided an interview software that kind of walked through different, how to prep for interviewing basically. And I found it incredibly helpful. And, one thing that stood out is just preparation. You got to really prepare for this. And one of the other things was the timing of how long do you take to answer a question. And like Dimitri was saying, the attention span is very short. So ideally, at least when I prepped, it was like a minute and a half max for me. But, just try to get to the point, quickly answer their question. Completely agree with Linda. When you get a random question, you can just say, oh, that's a great question. And you know what? I prepared for a lot of questions, but this one, let me think about it for a second. And take a couple seconds to collect your thoughts and answer. It is perfectly okay. They know, I mean, if you prep for an interview and they ask you a random question, they know their question is hard and they really like it and ask everybody. And so if you take time to process and reflect briefly and then answer, that means a lot, regardless really of what the answer is. Try to give a little story, what you learned from it, what you're going with it, and what you learned, and how you can benefit the program or, whatever, in a minute and a half. That should be fine. All right, I can answer the next Oh, the ask, sorry. The next question. So Linda, sorry, it's going to be a question for you. Are there interview questions we shouldn't ask, especially with regards to possible pregnancy and maternity support?
We shouldn't ask or they shouldn't ask.
I think as students interviewing.
I think if you ask about maternity leave or family stuff in general and you get a weird response or a not so friendly response, it's likely not a family friendly program. Most programs nowadays should be relatively family friendly. And there's actually the ACGME like accredited programs implemented a new paternity like leave 6-week thing recently that was a huge step forward. So most programs should be pretty open to family questions. But yeah, I would just say inappropriate ones would just be the ones that feel inappropriate. I guess if they were to say like, do you want kids? Like that's kind of weird. No one should just be blatantly asking you that. Usually it's stemming from the student themselves asking, what's your maternity leave like? Do any of your residents have kids? Do you guys get, sick days if your kid's sick? So I'm not really sure. That's a great question of what like an inappropriate question would be. I would just make sure that the program is family friendly if you're interested in having a family.
Yeah, I definitely asked on my interviews, what are their paternity leave policy? And I specifically asked the residents, not necessarily faculty. And I found that was because that's a very important thing for me. And if a program does not have paternity leave and my program is 4 years long, I need a program that is more supportive of, family planning. But I don't know, Anita, do you have anything you add to this from a program perspective?
Yeah, so one, we are not allowed to ask you anything concerning your family plans at all. We're not allowed to ask you about maternity leave. We're not, if you're planning on having kids, all of that is inappropriate. All of that is off limits. So if anyone asks you that question, you really don't have to answer that because they should not be asking you that at all. The other part is, I think it's a great advice to ask the residents, how has the program dealt with maternity leave, sick leave, things like that, because even though you're a resident, you're still an employee. And so by all means, you get every single thing an employee gets. You will get short-term disability, you will get the leave, you will get all of that. There is no question about it. But I do agree with asking the residents, how has the program treated them when they have taken their leave? Was it a toxic environment? How was it coming back? Did they make up time? Like all of those kind of things, so you can get the culture. But you will get that time once you become an employee of that place. But yes, ask the residents. They'll give you all the scoop.
Alrighty, so I'm going to jump in with another question. This one is, how did you pick your list of stories to prepare in advance for your interviews? And then were there any interview questions that you were least prepared for? Kevin, do you have any thoughts on this one?
In terms of the list of stories, that's a pretty good question, because I think when I was preparing my interview, like possible interview questions I was going to ask, I literally kind of just sat there and really thought about my time in medical school and also time during like my gap year and in college as well, to really think about like, okay, if I take like a standardized question, like what are some strengths and weaknesses, or tell me a time you made a mistake or something, and really trying to go through the times that I felt like there was a mistake I made, for example, and could I make a meaningful story essentially out of that? And could I've learned like a certain lesson from that I can demonstrate to them that, to the program, that I recognize failure, for example, and I'm able to learn from the failure as well, in sort of a professional and mature way. that's kind of an example, but I think it's like kind of those characteristics and stories that people in the interview trail are kind of looking for to kind of like identify traits that show that you would be a good worker and good resident. I would say that you're not, no, they're not, I don't feel like they're not anything looking for like really dramatic or super like unique. It could be simple, like, you know, working on like a group project and fail to notice a certain thing or something like that. Is less about like sometimes the intensity of the story can be helpful, but really is kind of like, can you demonstrate some kind of lesson or how that make you grow essentially as a person, that I think is really, really valuable. In terms of kind of the harder questions, I think kind of the harder questions are like more of the like ethic questions that they ask you, that they sometimes can ask you, like if you're in a situation with like some like a palliative care patient, for example, how would you approach it? And really, you know, instead of like trying to prepare for every single possibility, again, kind of what was said earlier, like Mustafa said earlier, is like really pausing and thinking about what your answer would be. Like, okay, if someone were to, I don't know, kind of pimp you on that question, which is essentially what they're doing, what would you say? You would kind of wait and think about the case a little bit more, and then figure out what's kind of the appropriate way to respond to that sort of on the spot type of question.
Something that I also found helpful is I had friends in my class, namely Kevin, who we did like mock interviews with each other. So we tried to think of like really difficult interview questions for each other. And because interviews were Zoom, we literally set up a Zoom call in our background, dressed as we were, with our lighting and everything. And I made sure we could hear each other. And there was another physical person on the other side who we were comfortable with. And then they tried to ask us tricky questions, which made us also think and made them think. And that was really helpful just from the preparation standpoint. But additionally, I kind of tried to work backwards when picking my stories. So if I wanted to showcase like why I liked finding a differential in internal medicine, I tried to think of a case I had as a med student in internal medicine that like showcased that. So kind of like what Kevin was saying, but in order for me to kind of pick those stories, I had to think of like the 5 big bullet points I wanted to talk about myself, and then like figure out how I could like highlight those features by showcasing some kind of story.
Totally agreed. Not going to add anything to that. So I'm going to ask the next question, and that will go to Anita. Should we take notes? And if yes, handwritten or typing?
It's completely up to you. With taking notes, because things are virtual now, we used to send out our PowerPoint to the applicants. And so taking notes is only for you. If you're going to be writing them a thank you note and you wanted to put something special in there that you just noted down from the interview day, by all means, but usually we send everything out so that you don't have to write anything down, especially going into the virtual landscape. Even before, when things were in person, we would still send you away with our PowerPoint presentation. And so it's completely up to you. We don't pay it any attention if you do. At least for us, we did not. It was not a point deduction, a point addition, in those kind of regards.
Yeah, for me personally, I did personally take notes. And what I did was print out the stuff that the programs sent me. And it was for me, not just mentally, but to actually physically have notes that, oh, this, I got weird vibes from this program. I'm not going to rank them high. Because, when you interview in October versus when you, make your rank list, a lot of those feelings have, disappeared by that time. And so you want to keep track of how your experience was, how you felt, how the vibes were between you and other people. And I took notes, and, I didn't like make an effort to show them my notepad with my pen, but, when I'm looking down, they know that I'm taking notes, and I think it went well.
Okay. Oh, in that regard, I thought you were talking about like taking notes of like the actual presentation and interviews, but yes, definitely take notes of every single interview that you do, because he's absolutely right. The place that you will interview with at the end of October And then now you're in the middle of January, you're going to forget about all those fuzzy feelings that first interview you did in October. So make sure you write down those notes, write down those good things or things that you notice about the program, because yes, you're gonna have to read all of that all over again and remember all those feelings again. But yes, absolutely right. Every interview.
And I think everyone has their own little system for that. The way that at least most of my interviews worked is it was like a 15 or 20 or 30-minute interview spot, and then there was like a 5-minute break and then another one. So I tried to use that 5-minute break to kind of write down my thoughts on what I talked about and like how it went. And I tried to make a point of something I talked about with that person, so that when I sent my thank you email, I could be like, I really enjoyed our discussion on blank, which also jogged my memory when I was sending it and also made that connection a little stronger. And I wrote all of mine on note cards. And then when it came to match, I was able to physically arrange my note cards on a like cork board based on my feelings and everything.
I personally use the Excel spreadsheet method, like a big Excel spreadsheet method, and just check boxes on things that like I marked and like constantly rank them and re-rank them as interviews go on and stuff like that. And it was helpful for me because I don't have that long-term of memory.
Yeah, I agree. That's even something I wish I did that actually. But by the end of my interview season, I ended up having the positive and the negative for each program, and I used that for my ranking.
All right, I think we're ready for the next question. So this one's a little tricky. I think everyone can probably add some different angle to it. How do you recommend addressing interview questions regarding gaps in your application, board failure, leave of absences, remote rotations? What advice do you have on that? Linda, do you have any tips in particular?
That's a great question. I never came across that. So I never got asked that, or I never had to like explain that. I had friends who delayed their boards or had a kid, something like that. And then you would just explain what the circumstances were. But I'm not sure how like a board failure or something like that. I'm not sure how those conversations go. I'm not sure if Anita or Katie have more insight on that.
I was going to say, honestly, the way the ARIS application and the supplemental application are now, there are so many opportunities for you to already address your we'll call them red flags, whether it be a course or board failure or a gap in your education, repeat year, anything like that. It's important to be honest and transparent about it. But like Kevin touched on earlier, when you're interviewing and how you answer questions, always make sure that you're focusing on the positive. You can still address the negative, but focus on how you grew from it. How did it make you a stronger candidate, a stronger applicant, a stronger clinician, or even just a better human being because of the lessons that you learned through that experience? Honestly, hopefully, because you've addressed it already in your application or your personal statement, you're prepared to answer those questions. And honestly, it's not a bad idea to practice those kinds of questions with your peers. Be prepared just in case. If you were to be asked a question about it, how would you answer it? Don't go in without trying that out with a friend and getting some very honest feedback of how you answered it, and try answering it several different ways. Have them ask you the questions in several different ways, just so you are completely prepared and equipped and not completely caught off guard when the question is asked.
I completely agree with Katie. Be as transparent as possible, because trust me, we read all applications holistically. And so if we see any gaps, we are truly trying to put together like what happened. And so when we're asking you this question, we just need you to be as honest as possible with us and let us know. You do not have to go into deep details with what's going on, but when you do explain it, just make sure you're encompassing all the major details. And again, yes, focus on the positive. If during that leave, you got a master's degree, say that. Or if you did a poster presentation somewhere at a conference, make sure you highlight those things. Highlight any kind of work that you did during that time off, just to let them know, like, yes, I may not have been in classes, but I was still doing things in this area. So yes, always highlighted with the positivity.
Great conversation. So the next question that we got is, what is your opinion on dual applying, and how does that relate to different specialty interviews? So this is for people who are applying to maybe, radiology and, maybe something else. And how do you approach that? I personally applied to radiation oncology and internal medicine because you have to do a PGY 1 year. And so for me, it was, I applied for this because it's part of the program. But, I think the general consensus was, if you're applying to different specialties, try not to do it at the same hospital, because people talk to each other, and if it'll just look bad, on you. But maybe Maria, I know you have EM, IM, so I'm assuming maybe you apply to IM and EM separately as well. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, no, so I did. There's 11 EMIM programs in the country, so they recommend that you apply to something else. So I applied to EMIM, but then I like them both so much that I applied to EM at some hospitals and IM at some hospitals, which they typically don't recommend. So don't tell anyone I did that. But it was very tricky because I agreed, like Mustafa said, like I didn't want to have both specialties at the same hospital. If you're doing like med peds or EMIM or combined, talk to the program directors, because a lot of the times, like all the EMIM program directors as a unit expect you to apply to one of the categoricals at their hospital. So for example, at certain hospitals, I would apply to EMIM and I would also apply to their EM program, or I would also apply to their IM program. And then my one interview day counted for both, and I could rank both of those programs at that specific hospital. So at least EMIM does that. And I believe some med peds programs and other specialties do that as well. So if that's the situation you're in, where you're applying to a combination residency, I would inquire about that. But if you're applying to like primarily like OBGYN, but you also have like family medicine because you either can't decide or you're trying to figure out where you want to go, I would just make sure you have reasons for both and be clear, and don't mix up your interviews or your applications or your letters, because I've heard tons of horror stories about this beautiful pediatrics letter that goes to an OBGYN program, and then you've basically shot yourself in the foot in program directors talk, and it could hurt your chances. So I personally had a giant spreadsheet that kept track of my like 11 personal statements and my 7 letters and all of those things, and I tried to cross-reference. And so honestly, I think if you're double applying, that's like one of the biggest pieces of advice I would have from an applicant standpoint, is just make sure you're organized, and then you stay organized throughout the process. And so when you're going into an interview, this is the specialty you're going in for, this is the mindset, and that's what I want to do. Otherwise, you'll kind of confuse yourself and you might like bite your tongue.
Yes, definitely do a very good job of labeling all of your documents that you save. You're going to have a personal statement for each specialty you're applying to. You're going to have letters of recommendation in ARIS that you are assigning to only specific specialties. You're going to have some preceptors that are going to write an LOR for you targeted towards one specialty. Some may make it generic enough to be able to use for any specialty. Make sure you're having that communication with your preceptors before they write your LORs, because the last thing you want to do is have a conversation with them and they think they're applying it to OB-GYN, and so they write it as if you're applying OB-GYN, and you've decided to dually apply OB-GYN and family med, and you've now released that letter to the family med programs too, and it's specifically targeting OB-GYN. So now they know that they're the backup plan. And so that's the one thing, is you want programs to feel that they're your highest priority, and that specialty is your highest priority. And so along the lines of what Maria said, is you don't want to be very careful about applying to 2 programs in the same institution. I can tell you, as a residency coordinator and advisor, we discourage our students from doing that, just because of the risks tied to applying to 2 programs in the same hospital. They're going to talk, they're going to find out, and you are risking being blacklisted from both programs, because they find out you're applying to both specialties and you're not 100% committed to their specialty and their program. And they want to rank people that they know are going to make them a priority, just like you want to know that they're going to make you a priority. It goes both ways.
And just to intervene, if I may, I would say on another level and note, don't no-show interviews. It's the same lesson. It's a small world, people talk, and it's best, even if it's last minute, to give a heads up, state that you're not going to be there, and thank them for the time and effort for so far with that interview. But if you no show, it can burn a really deep bridge scar in programs, and they'll remember you for fellowship, they'll remember you for jobs. I mean, it can be years.
I cannot stress that enough. That was actually on one of my tips. Do not do a no-show at all. Even if you have to, in the middle of the night, email that program and let them know that you will not be coming. My program director has called medical schools and spoken to deans when students have done no-shows. It is not a good look. Programs do not like that because we prepare so much for your interview. There's a lot that is going into your interview day, and we take it very seriously. And so when you do a no-show, we're freaking out. We're like, oh, did this person get the email? Do they know that they're supposed to get here? Like, we're worried about you. And so we're trying to hunt you down. That's honestly what's going on here. And so if you do a no-show, we're trying to figure out your whereabouts. And that is kind of disrupting, not even kind of, that's disrupting the whole day with everyone. So definitely, it doesn't matter. 2 a.m., you cannot do the interview, send the email. They will see it in the morning, they'll write you off, and it'll be okay. And then they'll probably work with you later to get something fixed. The other thing, yes, I cannot tell you how many applications I have seen through the years with the wrong letter of recommendation attached to the wrong application. And it's so obvious. And there's really nothing we could do about it. Like, we find out within the first 2 or 3 sentences that this was not for us. And now you're down a letter. And so there's nothing we can do. And yes, applying to different programs within the same institution is a very risky thing. And I would say this because in being pediatrics, we're a lot of backup plans sometimes. And so we can tell in your application that you are not into pediatrics. We can tell. You've done a lot of surgery electives. You've been a part of the surgical committee. Like, we read the applications. And so in our minds, we're like, oh, wow, pediatrics now. Like, it is already coming to our minds that this is not your first choice. And so then there's a phone call that is being made to the surgery department. Hey, is so-and-so interviewing there because their application is here? Just because we're curious. It's not to get you in trouble or anything. We're truly just curious because we're like, we really hope that you use this application for surgery because it looks like it should be for surgery. So it's not even to like be mean about it or anything. We just want to make sure you know that this is not for us. So yes, please make sure you read through everything. Yes, it is okay to check that application for the 10th time before you submit it. I promise you, check it for the 10th time. It will be okay. And then go ahead and submit it.
All right, that was great advice from everyone there. So moving into another question, and this might be best answered by Katie and Anita, because I'm not too familiar with it, but if programs are offering online or in-person interviews and they claim to be unbiased, is there a preference from the programs whether or not they want in-person or virtual?
Well, for us, we follow the ACGME guidelines. When they suggested that we do interviews virtually, we only did virtually. We decided not to do any hybrid. We just completely shut it down. So I don't have much to say on that one because we didn't offer it at all.
Yeah, the programs are really supposed to be abiding by what their specialty councils and specialty groups have decided. And I can tell you the majority of the specialties have decided to align with AAMC's recommendation, which is all virtual. I will say I've heard of a couple specialties, ortho being one, where there's a number of programs that have said we're going to offer hybrid. And there are some hospitals that are really, some of the programs are really pushing to do hybrid. As for if you're given the option, you have to decide what's best for you. I can tell you the specialties are really challenging these programs. If you're going to insist on offering hybrid, both virtual and in-person opportunities, then you definitely need to treat these applicants the same, evaluate the same. I don't know that that's always happening, but that's the guidance they're being given at this point. I will tell you, most programs, though, you're going to run into are offering the virtual. Some programs are offering in-person visits following those virtual interviews. It's not a bad idea if you have the opportunity to go to see the facility. This is a lot of these interviews. It's not just about them learning about you. It's about you learning about them and learning and trying to decide for yourself if this is a good fit for you personally in your life and your family and your future just as much. So you want to, being on site is a great way to do that. It's hard to gauge a lot of that from just the virtual component that you get. So if you have the opportunity, even just go on your own to visit those sites, it's always beneficial.
And that's part of the reason why we did not do a hybrid, because we did not know how to make sure residents all felt the same. That the ones that are coming in that are in Atlanta that can come to see us, that they wasn't feeling anything differently than somebody who was in Washington State. And so because like we just followed the advice because it just will fit everyone. So yeah, that's why we made the decision.
I think my program is trying to transition to the first phase, which is going to be virtual. And then the second phase is going to be like an open house second look for the people who kind of pass like that first phase. And I'm not sure if that's the way other programs are going, but that was mentioned to me literally yesterday by a professor at my institution. So that's another option that might it might go that way too.
Yeah, I agree. Even our programs, they have optional for people that want to come visit. So that's always a good opportunity to get to meet the residents and to visit the campus.
All right, so we have a few more questions that we can either address or we can go online and answer. Let's see. Seems like you guys have been doing great answering the online ones. Okay, so there's one that says positive things are likely to be listed. However, I don't think I heard how a student best addresses a failed board score to be a positive or repeating classes positive in ERS to get an interview opportunity. Anybody would like to address that?
I would say just be as honest and transparent as possible. If you failed a class, you will just have to own it. And maybe talk about the lessons that you've learned from that failure. Probably just talk about, what happened after you failed the course. What did you do to get yourself ready to now get in and pass that course? What changed from that failure to now that passing? So make sure you highlight that because you passed the class. So just make sure you highlight that part.
And every specialty, every program is different in regards to their perspective on those failures. There are some more forgiving than others, specialty wise, and some programs more forgiving than others. But no matter what, if they are open to accepting students with failures, they want to see growth. They want to see that you have taken that negative and turned it into a positive experience and you have grown from that. That is the focus. They want to see that you have changed your behavior, you've changed your circumstances, whatever it may be, and you're in a better place and better equipped to handle being a resident in their program.
I'll also highlight if you change their study habits, things like that, because when you become a resident, becoming a physician is a lifelong learner. But because when you become a resident, you're also going to be working and studying all the time. So if it's something that you change the study habits or something like that, that could actually look really good. Like, okay, you made that transition. You made that turn that you needed to make.
Completely agreed. And it goes back to answering questions in a positive way. Yeah, definitely failing a class is, not a positive thing. But what did you learn from that class? You're presumably graduating medical school, so maybe that failed class did not really make that much of an impact on your overall graduation. And so you learned something from that. And I think everybody, myself included, your study habits from undergrad and grad school may not necessarily translate well to medical school. And even with the medical school, I found myself every block, you may change your study habits a little bit. And during those times, there's small, micro growth that happens. And then someone fails a class. Well, okay, let's take a step back. What did we learn from this? Well, maybe my studying habits were not that great, and I did X, Y, and Z, and here I am today. And I did, for example, I failed STEP or COMLEX level 1 first, and then I took it again and passed. Here's what I learned. Here's how I'm gonna implement that moving forward. I think all of those are small data points that you can use to improve your overall, professional career moving forward.
All really, really great points. I think this next question, this most recent question in the chat, is a good one to talk about live, because I don't think any of us have been exposed to the signaling that's relatively new. So Wendy's asking, should students reach out to programs after September 28th to let programs know if they are really interested, or are the preference signals the only way to let programs know if you are very interested?
What is that?
Well, it's a new age with the supplemental application and program signaling. And so this year is truly an experiment for all of us. Yes, a couple of specialties used it last year, but this year we've got 16 specialties participating in the sub app. And so signaling, honestly, we're all guessing of how this is going to work. But I can tell you there are some specialties. Go to the specialty councils or associations or the professor associations that they have, because a lot of these councils actually have recommendations. I'm trying to remember which one I read the other day. I think it was emergency medicine. There's some that tell you that advise applicants to not contact them at all, to not contact it once you've submitted your application. I can tell you signaling is your indication you're very serious about the program, and they know that. So I don't feel, if you have signaled a program, honestly, I don't think you need to be contacting that program. In addition, you don't want to come across as overbearing and pushy with these programs and too persistent. You need to be patient, as well as a lot of these specialties this year have also announced some universal interview dates. So be aware of when those dates are, because some of them aren't until mid-October and even some into late October and November, like orthopedics is mid-November. OB-GYN, they've got them in a couple stages in October. So make sure that you're checking those, the specialties you're applying to, be looking for those universal interview dates so that you're aware and not getting too anxious too early. Be looking for those interviews after that date.
Yeah, and and I don't know if you agree, Katie, after those interview dates, if things have gone out and you haven't gotten an interview, maybe at that point you may reach out and say, hey, keep it very simple. I'm interested in this program for X, Y, and Z. I was hoping to interview your program. I'm still interested if there's still availability in the interviewing in your program. And keep it simple. Worst case scenario, you don't get an interview, which is fine because you already did not. So it's worth giving it a try and see if that works.
I will say, do not expect a response. If
Yes.
you choose to contact a program, first of all, anytime you send something to the program director, also CC the coordinator for the program, but don't expect a response. 99.9% of the time, they will not respond to you. Just know that if they're going to pay attention to your email, they're going to respond in a different way, which is going to be through that interview process. And some of these specialties that have the universal interview dates also have dates that they've identified that they will notify all of their applicants by, whether they be waitlisted, rejected, or being offered an interview.
Great point. Sorry, Anita.
I was just going to say, I agree with the both of them. There's nothing wrong with sending an email, letting them know that you're interested. For us, we did interviews on a rolling basis. So yes, we looked at everyone's application when ERAs first opened, but we always went back in and always went back in and always went back in. And so if you are someone who is very interested, let that program know. And yes, to Katie's point, we may not respond, but trust me, we read the email and we have flagged it. And so if we are coming back around and we're doing a whole nother set of interviews, because people are going to cancel throughout the season. People are going to cancel. And so there will be spots that are open. And so just make sure that that program knows that you're interested. So as they're creating that next list of wave of people to reach out to, you're probably one of them. And yes, it doesn't hurt to do it at all.
All right, great answers. Remember, the program also is trying to play the game that you're trying to play. So, okay, one final question, and then we can go to final words. This is probably to Anita and Katie. If you still have to take the COMLEX, but already took STEP, can you still submit the ARS application on the 28th and expect interviews, or will programs look at the app as incomplete without the COMLEX score with just STEP being sufficient?
Did they say which STEP score? Is it STEP 2, COMLEX 2?
That part was not clear.
Definitely STEP 1.
Step 1 and 2. I'm guessing they took
Definitely.
both STEP and just haven't taken you COMLEX.
Yes, if you like the STEP 1 COMLEX, put that in. Like you may not get any interviews, and you may sit in there asking yourself why. It's because you have absolutely no test scores. Now we cannot rank you unless you finish your COMLEX 2 at all. There are no exceptions at all with that. So we will keep checking to make sure. Now I'll also say this to stress this: the moment you get your COMLEX scores back, the programs that you're interested in, let them know. Send them an email immediately letting them know. That looks really good for you, because the last thing a program wants to do is to go back into ARIS and look for your name and see if your COMLEX scores are in. Let them know the very moment you get it, so that they can go ahead and update your rank or whatever they're doing for you.
Yeah, that's important to know that ARIS, so if you release your application and anytime you update your application, maybe you add more letters of recommendation or additional board scores, you have to go back in and release those items to the programs, but programs don't get notified that there's an update to your application. So you will have to contact every single program you apply to let them know that your ARIS application has been updated, and let them know in the email what has been updated. Let them know I have my COMLEX scores have been released to your program. They're accessible in ARIS and all that. So make sure that you're letting them know and that you are indeed releasing it to the programs. You can absolutely apply to programs without having all of those documents. But if you don't have any board scores at all, now in this question, the student indicated that they do have STEP scores, but not COMLEX. Your application could be considered and be interviewed. There's a lot of programs, if you have no board scores at all, they will not consider offering you an interview until you've released those board scores to them.
Thank you all. This is great. So we'll have 1 minute left. We'll ask for final thoughts about people going into the ARIS application season and match season. So I'm gonna keep it very, very short. I'm gonna say prepare for everything that we just discussed.
I can go next. I would just say be yourself. You don't need to lie or cover anything up and put on a show. They're already interviewing you for liking who you are. So I would just maintain that same kind of enthusiasm, and you should be just fine.
And utilize the resources available to you. A lot of universities provide interview prep resources. Our school uses Big Interview Medical, provides that to our medical students. And that is a great resource if your school doesn't provide it to you to go ahead and pay for. It's got a great amount of question banks and things to help you gauge the quality of your answers. And I see Mustafa nodding his head. So I'm guessing, and Maria gave thumbs up. So I'm guessing you guys also used it. But those are great resources to help you prepare your questions and how you're going to answer your questions effectively.
Yeah, I can go next. I'm going to say trust in your application and be confident, and also prepare. I can emphasize that enough. So just like Katie said, I will practice to myself and talk to myself, and then go through some of the questions. There we go.
I'll jump in and say, have fun. You've worked so hard to get into medical school. This is like the most stressful job application process ever. We can all accept that. We can all admit it. You're stuck doing it. It sucks. I'm sorry, but you've made it this far. You've gone through 3 years of medical school. You're in like the final stretch, and this is awesome. So have fun and really try and enjoy the process and just like embrace it and be proud of yourself for being there. And that'll really help you get some positive energy, and it'll show through, and programs will notice it. So be proud of yourself and have fun.
I agree with everything Maria said. Have fun. You guys are the only ones that go through this process. It's a very unique process. So please enjoy it. I would say sign on to the Zoom at least 2 to 3 minutes before the actual interview day starts. That's a really good look, guys. Ask questions, check out the program's social media, check out their website, like have some questions related to the program that is ready, that you can ask people. Look at some of the faculty. Definitely read through all your interview materials, everything that's sent you in the email, read through that. The last thing your program wants to do is answer a question that they know for a fact that they have put into this long, nicely curated email, especially for you. So make sure you check out all your materials, make sure all those things are there. And yes, please prepare and read your application, because we do read them. Like your hobbies, we read all of your hobbies. We do. And if it's very, very interesting, we are going to ask you about it during the interview day. It will come up. But yes, have fun and enjoy it. This is a special time.
I also want to mention to focus on your wellness during this process too, because it can really take a lot out of you, even though you're smiling or maybe fake smiling for 4 hours straight. It can be hard. And so I like when I did the virtual interviewing part, I was actually really nice to still be at home right after you log off and be like, wow, that was really stressful and I really need to go take a walk or go for a run or something like that. Or go down the hall to talk to some of my friends and vent or something. So, you know, make sure you take care of yourself during this process too.
All right. So thank you everyone for your time. This session is recorded and will be available for you. Wonderful questions. Visit our website at www.acom.org/RFC. You can also follow us on social media. Let us know if you have any questions. You all have a wonderful evening. If anything we did not address, by all means, feel free to shoot us an email or just message us on social media. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Bye guys, good luck.
Good luck.
Bye-bye.